Hi, my name is Donna Duncan, and I am a Latin teacher at West Forsyth High School. Today, in my Latin 3 and 4 and AP class, we will be discussing Caesar's de Bello Gallico, the Gallic War. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off talking about the geography of Gaul, and then we're going to eventually, by the end of the lesson, we will be actually translating the first chapter into English. Our essential question is, how did the geography of Gaul affect the cultural diversity of its people? How did ancient Gaul look geographically? How did that affect what happened, like what kind of people lived there? So we're going to talk about this. It's going to be really kind of interesting. Our learning target, by the time we get through, you're going to be able to identify the geographical features of Rome, and you're going to be able to compare and contrast the peoples of Gaul based upon their location, where they are in the country. So you may or may not know, I'm going to skip this and go to this one first. You may or may not know, but Gaul is actually present-day France. So here is a picture of ancient Gaul. We have Britannia. What would Britannia be? Britain, okay. We have Gallia, which is France. What is Germania? Germany, okay. Hispania, Spain, Italia, Italy. So as we do this, you notice this kind of gives you an idea of how we came up with the names in English. You know, Britannia becomes Britain, Hispania becomes Spain, Italia becomes Italy. Gallia, we still, we don't call it Gaul today. But if you fly into Paris, you fly into Charles de Gaulle Airport. So de Gaulle tells you that he is from Gaul. So this is what it looks like today. So when we look at it, this right here is Gaul. We have Italy, we have Spain, and now when you look at it, it shows you how we've changed. We've got Portugal. France is actually not as big as Gaul. Right in here, and this, I don't think I can do this. Let's see. Try it with a marker. Sorry. Right here, where it says Gallia Cisalpina, we'll talk about this, but this is actually Switzerland now. And then we go into Austria over in here. And we have, up here, we have Belgium. So it's, well, actually here's Belgium. Belgium, and then that's going to be the Netherlands. But you can see how, even though it was a big widespread place, now it's changed into all these different countries. So, if you look at the map I gave you, whoops, wrong thing. If you look at the map I gave you, this is a picture of what Gaul looked like during the time of Caesar. And so we have Britannia. We have this group up here called Belgica, which is going to be present-day Belgium. We have this little group right down here called the Helvetii, which we're going to talk about. It's a tribe. They actually become present-day Switzerland. We have the Celts, Celtica, and then down here we have the Aquitani. So we're going to go through, and what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the geographical features that affect each of these parts. So, what did I do? There's my pen. So let's look at your outline map. I gave you markers, so you have markers that you can use. You can do whatever you want to, however you want to use them, whatever colors you want to use. If you don't want to use your markers, you don't have to. You can use a pencil and pen and all that stuff, however you want to do it. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to identify the geographical features. So first thing I'm going to do is, and I don't think I have this on y'all's paper, but up here, just draw it in. This is Britannia. Okay, that's going to be England. And that's actually going to play a part, because even though we're talking about the Gallic War, and we're going to be talking about Caesar's invasion into France, we're going to find out that the Gauls escape France. And they actually go to Britain. And he follows them there. So we're going to be talking about that too. So Britain actually plays a role in this. Excuse me. over here, in this area over here, and I'm just going to do this so you'll know. This is Germania. Germania. So that is what is now present-day Germany. So we will find out that the Germanic tribes were very bellicose. They were very warlike. They fought a lot. And if y'all remember back in Latin 1, we talked about how the Romans did not like facial hair. And you could always tell a foreigner or a barbarian because they would have a beard. Well, when you look at the Germans, they had big beards, and they had big long beards and wild hair and stuff. So they were considered barbarians by the Romans. Up here, beside this, cutting through here, this right here is going to be your Rhine River. It's what separates Gaul from Germany. We have another river that runs right through here. This is called the Rhone River. And I want to make sure I don't miss any of the things that I want to make sure we get on here, so that's why I've got my cheat sheet. There is a river that runs right here. Now, granted, it doesn't. This runs it into the ocean, but I want to show you that this is the actual river. This is called the Garonne River. Whoops. Garonne. The Garonne River. And then we're going to have two, starts off as one, and it's going to split. This is the Seine, which is what runs through Paris, and this is the Marne. So when you start looking at this, you can see how the rivers can affect the land and how everybody is divided. Where, we could go out and cross the Chattahoochee, but crossing the Mississippi might be a little bit more difficult. Okay, so crossing the Seine might be easy, but trying to cross the Rhine might be a little bit more difficult. So the rivers play a big part in how the different tribes interact. Okay, I'm going to change colors. I'm going to move it to, well, it's kind of a brown color. It's kind of a tan color. I'm going to move it because we are going to add in our mountains. So we've got a set of mountains right here. These are called the Pyrenees Mountains. They still exist today. They're still there. They separate present-day France from Spain. Down here is Hispania. So they separate Spain and France today. So once again, crossing a mountain range to invade another country was not something that was easily done. Nowadays we have tanks, we have airplanes, we have helicopters, all these things. They didn't have all that. So to take an entire army through the mountains could be a problem. We have another set of mountains right over here. These are called the Alps. And I'm sure everybody has heard about the Alps. Alps where you go in Switzerland and France, so you can go skiing. And then the last thing I want to do before we start talking about other things, I'm trying to figure out what color I want to do it in. What's a good color? I'll do it in purple. You can do it whatever color you want to. Bodies of water. So we have the English Channel. They didn't call it the English Channel. To them, it was just a large ocean, a large body of water. Because here we have the Atlantic. So they knew that there was an ocean. They knew there was an ocean, so to them, this was all just part of the ocean. And like I said, when we start talking about how the Gauls escaped, or the Celts really, escaped Gaul and went into Britain, we're going to start talking about how the Romans, what they did to follow them. Then the other thing we have is down here, we have the Mediterranean Sea. And I'm going to mark this down here. This down here is Italy, Italia. So one thing that you probably don't know is that right now, and I'm going to flip it back when y'all get it. Well, I'll give you a second, but I'm going to flip it back. Can I flip it back real quick?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay. When we look at this, in this picture today, Italy goes all the way up here to Switzerland. But actually in ancient Rome, Italy stopped about right here. It stopped at the Rubicon. The Rubicon is a river, and we will discuss this when we talk about Caesar and the Civil War, when he crossed the Rubicon. That's where you hear the phrase, the die is cast. When he crosses the Rubicon to bring his army into Italy, that's when the whole thing blows up and he wants to be dictator and he gets assassinated and everything. So if you look now, the Rubicon's right about here. But in ancient Italy, in ancient Rome, this right here was Italy. And this part up here was actually part of Gaul. It was part of France. So when we look at our map, we have Italia down here, but right here by the Alps, we have a part of Gaul, I'll change it to, called whoops, I spelled it wrong. Cisalpina Gallia. What it means is that this is Gaul below the Alps. It's Gaul below the Alps. So it's this area right here that's between the Alps and Italy. And it's Cisalpine Gaul. When you cross the Alps, and I'm going to go ahead and write it in the same color, you run into Transalpina. I hope y'all can see that. Gallia. Trans meaning across. So this is the part of Gaul that is across the Alps. And even though it's normally considered this part right here, it's actually anything that's on the other side of the Alps. So you have transalpine across the Alps and cisalpine below the Alps. Any questions? Y'all are really quiet. Anybody got anything to say? No, ma'am. Ellie, you're so funny. Okay, so now we're going to start talking about the actual divisions of the country, of Gaul. This part right here, this belonged to a tribe called the Belgae. The Belgae. We're going to learn who these tribes are, what they do, why they were important, why they affected Caesar's conquering of Gaul. Remember earlier I told you that the Germans, they weren't Germans, they're Germanians, were a very barbaric tribe? Well, look where the Belgae are in relation to them. They're very close to them. So if you are a tribe or a people and you are close to someone who always wants to make war, then you probably are going to be very warlike too. So that's what we're going to find out about the Belgae. Down here, let's do yellow. Down here, in this little bitty place right here, between the Garonne River and the Pyrenees, it's called Aquitani. That's where the Aquitanis live. I just can't fit it in that little box. Aquitanis live here. And then, let's see what color haven't I used yet. I'll just do black. The rest of this in here, this whole middle section in here, these were the Celti. Now you've probably heard of the Celts. You probably may have even studied the Celts. You know, when you think about England and the Celts and the Celtic, when you think about Scotland and the Celtic singers and dancers and stuff, and Ireland, okay, that's because these people are the ones that leave Gaul and go to Britain. So originally they were actually in Gaul before they went to Britain and settled there. One more little bit of information and then we'll move on and we'll start looking at the actual translation of the story and stuff. Do you notice anything different about this area right here? Okay, so look at where this is. Look at where Italy is. What can you make any kind of connection between the two? Okay, so this is at the top of Italy, so that's right. So since it's at the top of Italy, what kind of people do you think they would be? Do you think they would be more like these people up here, or do you think they would be more like the people in Italy? The people in Italy. This Transalpine Gaul right here, this is actually what is known now as Provence in France. This is where like Nice is and all that, the French Riviera. But this was called Provincia Romana. It was not actually part of Italy, but it was part of the Roman province. It was a Roman province. The Romans had already gone in here, and they had already established their presence These people were paying them money. These people were paying taxes. These people were wearing togas and trying to assimilate with the Romans. They had already, in the Romans' perspective, from the Romans' perspective, become civilized. Whereas the rest of Gaul was uncivilized. And the reason why is just what Ellie said. Because they were close to this. Cisalpine Gaul is just like the other one. It's a province. So it's still part of, it's so close to Italy that there's not any kind of warring going on. Nobody's fighting against the Romans. The Romans have gone in there, they've inhabited it, everybody's acclimated to the Romans, everybody wants to be Roman. And so Caesar thinks, well, we've got this part, so why not just go ahead and move into the rest of it? So, now that we've seen a map, and we're going to keep referring to this map, and whether you use this one or whether you use the other one, got a lot of blank sheets in here. Whether you use this one, either one is fine. This one will be good as we start to do our translations because it has all the different tribes on it. So we're going to talk about the Helvetii, and we're going to talk about the Sequani. We're going to talk about where they're located on the map and what happens. So as we go through this, this will really help a lot. This map will. Doesn't have the, the reason why I do the other map is because the geographical features aren't very big. But as we go through it, this will be good as far as just looking at the different places. Yes, Nate?
Why was the Cisalpine, I don't really know how to say it, why were they not warlike with Germany if Germany was close to the Belgium and that's why they were warlike with each other?
Okay, so when you look at this, if you see how the Alps come through, the Germans would have a really difficult time coming through the Alps.
Okay.
So what they did was, this was the closest people to them. We'll find out that they had some problems with these people right here, these Celts right here. But ultimately, if you look even, you'll see that most of the tribes, the Germanic tribes, are up here. There are a couple down here, but they're not many. So most of them are up here, so this is where they're all fighting. This is where they're all trying to get control. And down here in the Alps, they didn't want to have to cross over. And truthfully, I think they were afraid to face the Romans. I mean, the Romans were known for their army and their military prowess. So these Germanic tribes, they wanted to take over Gaul, but they didn't want to mess with Rome.
Okay.
And that's what we'll find out is when Rome starts to take over and they have to start interacting and they have to start, then the wars start. Anything else? Yes?
So you know how we talked about how Rome had a senate like as a government?
Mm-hmm.
Did like Belgae or Celti had like any type of government, or were they just living like tribes with no like established?
Okay, so that's one thing we're going to talk about. So they had a government, but it wasn't anything near like what Rome has. So what they would have is they would have a government, they would have a chieftain, kind of like we talked about the kings of Rome. They would have a chieftain, they have somebody that would make the decisions. They may have a group of elders that would advise him, but it was nothing compared to what Rome has. Nothing compared to the Senate, nothing compared to having consuls and things like that. So, and we'll find out too that as these tribes fight against the Romans, as they fight against each other, all that's going to change because one tribe is going to, they're going to split up and all of a sudden now you're going to have a second leader. The leaders are going to fight. Who are we going to go with? So we're going to have that kind of thing too. And the Romans, of course, took advantage of that. Hey, we've got a warring tribe. They're fighting with each other, so I can jump in there and start fighting with them. Take over. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to start now is we are going to look at our story. So if you get your translation out, your Latin story. Before we do anything, what I want us to do, and I'm going to do this on the board. If you want to take a marker or something or a pencil, you can do it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to highlight words that y'all recognize. Okay? What words can you figure out without looking them up? What words do you see that you can recognize? Okay, so sentence number 1. Gallia est omnis divisa in partes tres. What's a word you recognize? Okay, Gallia is one. Whoops, that's awfully big. Okay, what else? I heard somebody say something. Est. Okay, now my board's frozen. Okay, and then Bailey said partes tres. Divisa. What else? I heard somebody else say something. Okay, what about quorum unum incolunt Belgae? Belgae, because we just met those. So what are the Belgae? Those are the people, right? That live in that part. So we know we're going to be talking about them. Unum. What about unum? Uno. One. Okay. Alium Aquitani. Do we recognize Aquitani? Yes, because that's one of the tribes we just talked about. Okay, next one. Tertium qui ipsorum lingua Celtae. Celtae, those are some of the people we just talked about. Okay, y'all, believe it or not, know lingua. Lingua. Language, tongue. So you know lingua. So as you're going through this, there's not a lot of reason to have to look words up. You recognize words. So what we're going to do real quick before we move on any further with this, Peyton, if you don't mind, if you'll come up here, there's a marker. We're going to start a running vocabulary list. And when we come across words, when we're translating that we don't know, we're going to add them to the vocabulary list. And this is what these are going to be the words that we test on, that we have quizzes over and stuff. So, omnis. Omnis will be the first one. So it's O-M-N-I-S. We know N. We should mark that one. Okay, quorum. Q-U-A-R-U-M. Okay, incolunt. I-N-C-O-L-U-N-T. Aliam. Tertiam. T-E-R-T-I-A-M. And we're just going to stop right here with that because I want y'all to see how we're going to do it. Okay, so as we're doing this. But what I want to do now is I want to take what we know and put it all together and see if we can translate this sentence. Gallia est. What does it mean? Gaul is. Okay, what is divisa? Divided. Division comes from it. So divided. We have the word omnis. So we know that Gaul is divided. How does omnis fit in? If I tell you that omnis means, If I tell you that omnis means all. All of Gaul is divided. How is it divided? In tres partes. In 3 parts. So see, y'all have never seen this before, but yet you could look at it and based on your knowledge of English, your knowledge of English derivatives, Latin derivatives, you can figure out what this means. Okay, so it's in 3 parts. We've already talked about the Belgae, the Aquitani, and the Celtae. Those are our 3 parts. Okay? The rest of it, one of which, meaning the parts, one of the parts, the Belgae inhabit. Another, the Aquitani. So we have one is the Belgae, another is the Aquitani. So tertium would be the third one. So the third one of whose language, or of the Celts, in whose language we call the Gauls.